Yo, what's up guys? It is time for that balance patch prediction once again. There are a few things that I want to mainly look at. So is it going to be a big or small balance patch? OP units for nerfs, recent released units, mostly those are in the balance patch. Temple of Chaos, and then also for just some random things that I have in mind that might be buffed here and there. So first of all, big or small balance patch? So maybe some people have kind of heard the rumor that I guess I spread kind of by saying things on stream, such as I talked to one of the Come To Us guys and we were talking a bit about balance patch, nothing in depth or anything, but more of like what are my expectations. So I did say it's like, okay, this is a really good timing for a good balance patch because this is after Siege tournament. We're still not near to the end of the RT arena, so we still have like 24-ish days by the time. I do expect this balance patch to hit somewhere next week, so about a week from now. So there's still like 23, 24-ish days left on that. And it is a good timing to do some switches because there's no like SWC, there's no tournaments or nothing. What that person at that point told to me is that most of the time the patch that we have in the November or December is not as big, but the one in January is a bit bigger. And the reason that he gave for that was that the November patch is very close to SWC, and because of SWC, people, especially in lower ranks, are like, oh, this and this unit was in SWC, let me delve them on that, let me build that up, and then it gets nerfed like 2-3 weeks later, and they don't really want to do that. Kind of makes sense. Still would recommend to go for a bigger balance patch because the game definitely does need a little bit of a bigger balance patch, and we'll talk a little bit about why. But I also went to, let's look at the data for those balance patches. So this is the balance patch of the 27th of 2024. And we do see a bunch of decent-ish changes. We have some changes to Julian, Gianna. We had like the Puppeteers being pretty oppressive at that moment, being pretty hard down-tuned over there. Zima getting a slight buff. We do have a buff on the Megumi, but this was not the final buff yet, which made him actually really good. That was the buff that came after that by getting more attack bar and stealing. All of these buffs were not really that interesting. Same for the Chi with that kind of stuff. Jongnam became very meta because of this buff by rather healing your HP, healing the allies' HP. Akroma definitely became a little bit more interesting at that moment. And then afterwards, more became more interesting once again. And we also had the Twin Angels becoming meta altogether. So definitely some meta changing things in here. We also have the Josephine getting a slight buff. Yay, Josephines. So nothing too crazy. A lot of filler on that 4 kind of style of things. We did have some changes in there which made it a little bit different, but nothing super crazy. Well, main thing that you could say in hindsight, it created the Twins meta and it created the Jongnam meta. That's pretty much what this balance patch did. Then let's look at the January patch. So the January patch went for a cigar nerf. So that's actually an interesting thing to notice. Units that were used in SWC at that year were not really nerfed. So the meta units such as the Chandra Velajul Cigar meta that we had at that time were not nerfed in the November patch right away, but the Cigar was actually nerfed in January after. They also gave the buff to the Miying, which kind of reverted already. They had the nerf to the Ragdoll, which is still kind of good. They had the nerf to the Burgild, which is still really bad. We also had this one. Okay, does not really change that much. Some of the collab units being buffed. Those were actually buffed pretty fast because that was the time. Was that the time where the collab was as well? I'm not really sure. Daragon being buffed, Bludja being buffed. That is about it, I would say, from interesting things. Yeah, that's pretty much just about it. So definitely not too many interesting things on the January buff or like balance patch neither. So I would not necessarily say that the January balance patch was any bigger than the November balance patch. So for that reason, I feel like they can have any reason to go for anything that they would like to do. The only thing that I would maybe say is that units that were recently used in SWC, so we're talking about maybe Chakras, we're maybe talking about like Oliver. Well, Oliver is old as fuck anyway, so you might as well just nerf that unit. But yeah, definitely a few of those SWC meta units out there, they won't be as much nerfed. But then again, I'm not sure. So this is a maybe big. I think the game, well, let's just write it like this. Maybe big. The game needs it. So that is what I would say on this. I am expecting, like, let's say a lot of people are going to be disappointed if it's another big balance patch that doesn't change anything at all. And that is one of those things, like, you definitely see it more on streams than on YouTube. YouTube videos are still doing okay-ish, except for the RTA videos, but the streams are mostly RTA related. And you definitely do see streaming numbers going down because RTA is just not that enjoyable to watch, because just a bunch of Megumis, just a bunch of Josephines, just a bunch of whatever. So that is definitely a thing that I could see some changes going into. So I hope some pretty decent changes, but let's see if that's actually gonna happen. So first of all, let's see about the OP units. Well, I think the first one to mention is definitely a Light Huarang. That's a no-brainer right there. That unit is so absolutely stupidly busted. If we put it to 2% pick rate over here, you already see that the Light Huarang is sitting at 45 on 12% pick rate. Like, these are all 5th picks most of the time. 5th picks in general sense have higher win rates than early picks, but this thing is that early picked and still on that crazy win rate, which actually goes up in the 5v5 as well. This thing in G3 has like an absolute insane freaking win rate of 55%. That is just stupid. So Light Hua, I would say the most easy thing is 200 speed to 150% for the speed increase that he has. That's definitely is not going to make him absolute shit. If they would put him to 100%, it might be a little bit too much shit. But if they make this a 15% and 150, I think he's still fine. Numbers would probably drop to like 52, 53-ish. They definitely won't go any lower than that in my expectation. But that is what I expect from that. Other units like a Valeska still doing really good, but if to up her... Yeah, no, I think that Valeska already recently got a nerf. This one recently got a buff. I don't think they're gonna nerf it right away, same for like Tianlang, those kind of things. But let's look at OP units from this kind of angle. So Oliver, we have said it many times, and Oliver, people would still love to see Oliver on a 24 lead, just to see what happens, and make the whole family 24 lead at that process. Don't think they will actually do that, but that's kind of the thing that they might go for. Question is Shiho. Do we want to get a nerf on Shiho already? I feel like he just recently finally got good. He's maybe a bit of an annoying unit, but then again, I'm not too sure about Shiho. I would be fine if Shiho still remains the same as is, because in the end, does have the counter in the form of Etna, does have the counter in the form of a good Sonya, so the counters are definitely there. Also, Asher has been shown to do pretty decent into this because they are actually on same base speed, so for that reason, it is doable to work with that. So Shiho, I think is fine. Jogun, I think is fine as well. It's also more recent. Heigang and Megumi, a lot of people really hate these units, but the win rates don't really represent that they should be hated that much. That is kind of the thing. But I would still say Megumi, strip, no steal. I think that that is just fine for him. Like, don't give him like stealing of like 3 turns immunities and that kind of stuff. And it will be a really slight nerf. It will still make him good enough, but yeah. Gianna is definitely on track where she is deserving nerf by just the sheer statistics that she has. Also has been good, long enough good anyways. The thing is, I don't think, like, the only thing that they probably will do is 85 into 50 for the stuns. Something stupid like this. Like, that is definitely what they're gonna do for Gianna. It's going to be annoying because I would like to see nerf skills, not activation rates. Like, that is definitely a thing that I would like to see with all of this, because that is what Counters likes to do, is just add more RNG. Don't add more RNG. Like, that is my hopes. It's not a prediction, it's a hope. Like, yeah, no, but that's the thing. Like, they're probably gonna do something stupid to Gianna like this. By all means, nerf Gianna to the ground. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm kind of done with that unit as well. Then Josephine, which is actually funny enough. Josephine, by statistics, is almost as strong as the Gianna. Sure, there's 4% more pick rate on the Gianna, but win rate is near same, ban rate is near same. Josephine is definitely passive +1 CD. I think that that is the best way. So she's less of a Saki unit. Still is strong in what she's supposed to do, but she's definitely less of a Saki unit in that kind of shape, way, or matter. Then I would say Zhongchen Lao is also more of a recent buffed unit. So I think Zhongchen Lao is still kind of fine as is. might be one of on edge of like, do you want to be looking at that for a nerf right there? But I think otherwise for nerfs, I think it's all kind of fine. I do know some people are calling out Nyx for nerfs. I feel like Nyx in lower ranks is something that's harder to deal with than on high ranks. But he's just an RNG priest of Sock. Well, to be honest, I would love to see Nyx remove A to B gain, give S2 100% rate. Like, that's what I would like to do. I would like to see a, not a necessarily buff nor nerf, but I want to see him less as an RNG unit, more as an actual active stripper, and remove the fucking A to B gain in that sense, where you just go for an awakening into his S2, and then his S2 actually gets like a 100% land, rather than like, oh yeah, if the enemy is lucky, he can land everything, or if the enemy is unlucky, he lands and strips absolutely nothing. It's like, too much all or nothing, man. Like, this thing is freaking 80% on everything, and this thing just remove that attack bar gain. Still keeping like the removal thing, like 30%, whatever, but don't give the A to B gain, so it's not like a passive fuckfest on that way, kind of shape way, whatever you want to do. So yeah, I think that is what I would give for nerfs. Maybe we'll go into some more nerfs later on, but I think that's for nerfs pretty much all that I would talk about. So recent released units, Tekken 8 / Arc, whatevers. I have no clue what these are called. Probably the Arc whatevers are too new, so I don't really expect a change on those. But definitely we can look at the Tekken 8 units. And with Tekken 8, the most common one that people talk about is Dark Jin. But how can you buff Dark Jin to not make him exactly the same as a Dark Itadori? Like, that's the issue. These units are too fucking identical to one another that I have no clue how to properly buff this. But yeah, I could see, like, if you give this self-attack buffing, it is a Dark Itadori. Like, that's just kind of the thing it is. Like, I don't know, man. If you give this where you always use the S3, it's just a Dark Itadori. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. No clue how you actually want to properly buff this, but good for COA or TOC. TOC is Temple of what's called Temple of Chaos. So that's the new content. So that's maybe a buff that you could see on him. Nina Williams, Nina Dark. Oh well, let's just keep it dark. Passive work on boss, just as simple as that. Make it a PvE unit by all means. I don't give a shit. Like, if you make this a PvE unit, it's also good for COA. So that's, or TOC, not COA. So yeah, TOC could maybe be a thing for those as well. If we look at the light one, I have no clue what you want to add to this one to make it any good. But light one definitely does deserve a buff as well. And also, if we're looking at the 5 stars, like the whole Hwarang family is just straight up ass. Like, Hwa family. Well, the issue is also, if you do anything to the Hwarang family, this thing has the skill 1 and skill 2. So that's just the thing. You can only kind of buff the skill 3s of these, which none of them are really that interesting. So I'm not sure how you want to buff that family. Same with Paul's. Paul's actually pretty simple. Paul, and that is a S1 HP scale. That's same thing they did to the Cardinals. Same thing they did, or like, yeah, Cardinals, the Slayers, and that kind of shit. Just make them skill 1 HP scaling, and then suddenly they're all good. And I think that is mainly the thing for those. If we're looking at these, I think that they are too new to already have a buff. But they might have, like, this one is Daisy is definitely 1 buff away from being good. The others, I am not too sure about. They could make some annoying shits on that. Especially this one has a speed lead already. One thing, though. The Jins have a Jin lead arena speed. Which element? They're gonna give one of those Jins a speed lead in arena. But which one they're gonna do for it, I don't know. Even if you make this a speed lead in arena. I don't even think it's gonna be that good, to be honest. But yeah, one of these is gonna be speed lead arena, and then it's gonna be a 28 lead. But which one? I have no clue. I would like to see a Heihachi more damage. Because this thing actually has pretty ass damage, and if they just add more damage to this thing, like, this thing shouldn't be an HP type. That's just big no-no. This thing should be a tech type. Maybe make it a tech type, not HP. Because there's no reason for him to be an HP type and then have 0 HP scaling damage at all. Like, just make this like a 800, 900 base attack, and we're talking about good numbers. So that's one of those things. So moving on next, Temple of Chaos. So what have we seen in Temple of Chaos thus far with all of the theory crafting of all of the content creators and everyone out there? Most good units are units which do have some kind of passive in the slot 3. So if we're looking over here, good nuker, why passive in the slot 3? Good nuker, why passive in the slot 3? Over here, good nuker, why passive in the slot 3? Good nuker, why passive in the slot 3? Also passive in the 3, passive in the 3. So we're just talking passives in the 3 that makes anything really good. So what are kind of units that would maybe potentially fit with that I feel like could get a buff and be really strong? And actually one came to mind, which is the Sakuna, which is this thing over here. It does have a pretty substantial good skill 1. The enemy only has 1,000 defense, so you definitely have a higher attack than that. The S2 can defense break, so therefore you're also able to do a lot more damage. But the S3, if this gets anything of a buff towards dealing more damage if you weren't hit before, then Sakuna would be a Sakuna passive damage increase. Then Sakuna would be really strong for this shit. Like, that is absolutely guaranteed that Sakuna would be fairly interesting for this. Maybe even a lead change where you just give like a crit rate lead to everyone and not just be just for dark or something like that. So that is definitely one of those units that I thought of. Outside of that, couldn't really think of something, but there's a lot of 4 stars that might have like a potential. Like, you could always go for one of those other Logan family things to remove the S3, make it a passive, change the kit a little bit, and then suddenly become like super good. So that's definitely one of those things, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sakuna gets like a buff for that and then just suddenly gets good in that. So then let's look at Siege. Main thing for Siege is buff speed leads, and there are a bunch of 4 stars in a 4-star. There are a bunch of 4 stars that you could say is like, hey, give them leads. Because, for example, the Robos, if you start giving the Robos lead, let's say the Fire Robo has like a Robo. If the Fire Robo has like a speed lead, then suddenly it becomes pretty interesting. Like, sure, you don't want to give it to a Dark one, would be maybe too OP, but yeah, if you give that something, also too many fire units already have speed lead. Maybe to the wind one, give like the wind one a speed lead or something like that. I don't know. There's definitely a bunch of options where you could say it's like, hey, let's give a Robo a speed lead, one of the Robo families a lead, and that will be suddenly pretty interesting. I'm not sure. Also the cats. Cats. Those definitely have an option to become a speed lead because, or at least leads in the, well, this one does have a lead already. That's kind of weird. Well, just changes awakening to something. But yeah, there's a few of them that you could say is like, hey, let's give them leads and suddenly they become somewhat decently interesting for Siege. But that is the main thing. Also, these, what are those? Tomb Warns, Tomb Warden. Like, if you give any speed leads to any of those, then suddenly we're kind of talking on the unit being decently to good. Maybe they're gonna buff something weird like these kind of things, but I don't really have that much expectation for it. Then buffs for RTA. It's always super hard to say what they're going to be buffing in RTA itself, very specific. So it just kind of depends, like whatever they feel like it, because they most of the time they just have like this dartboard, they just throw an arrow and they're like, yeah, let's buff Feng Yang again, or let's give another buff to Trix, or let's buff the Grogan again for the 16th millionth time to give Grogan back his damage on light with this or whatnot. It's like, sure, they always do kind of random stuff. So with RTA, it's kind of hard to say, so it's hard to say. Bad LD5s though. This list could go on and on for ages. There's so many bad LD5s. I do want to say one thing, however. Well, let's just say it like this. I'm currently sitting at what, 23 LD5s. The odds of me getting one of the LDs in a buff is like it's getting close to 50-50 to be honest, because I got a whole bunch of shitty LD5s, and by this point on, most of the time if they address LD5s, they address like 5 or 6. And that is on the edge where it's pretty much a 50-50 for me for having any of my units in the, or like having at least one unit in the balance patch. So that is always one of those things, like, there's pretty good odds that your streamer or your YouTuber that you normally watch does get something in the buff. Not necessarily because they recently pulled it. So, for example, I pulled Liliana, already recently got buffed. She's still pretty garbage. It is arguably my worst LD5 I have, or at least top 3 worst LD5 I have. could be buffed, but there's a lot of options for that. And I think that this list could go on and on for like a very long time because there's just so many shitty LD5s. Like this one shit, that one shit, this one shit. That one's actually really good right now. And let's keep on. Like this one still arguably kind of shit. There are so many bad ones out there. Like I would say in general sense, one third of the LDs is garbage. So you can literally buff 1/3 of the units that you can see over here, which would make this list too long. So many things they could do. Will they do it? That's mainly the thing. I don't know. Sometimes they buff something 0 to hero. But for example, if we're talking really shit units like this, no, mainly this unit has been shit for such a long time. This is really, in my opinion, still the worst LD5 in game. Not everyone does agree with that because you feel like your LD5 is worse until you get this one and then you feel like this one is worse. People have been, of course, hating on Hanwolves. Nigong is pretty far out of meta. Lima's pretty far out of meta if we're talking about units I have. Sean is kind of far out of meta. Jaeger's still out of meta. This thing could be a siege-ish thingy, whatever. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that's kind of far out of meta which could deserve a buff. Like this thing getting a guaranteed hit. This thing coming back into meta. This thing is fine. That thing is low-key kind of fine as well. This thing is kind of like super bad as well because just the Lamila offense is way stronger than this, so why would you use your LD5? This thing, absolute garbage. Probably top 10 contender, worst unit in game. This thing, kind of garbage as well. These are actually not that bad. This one pretty bad. This one pretty bad. What do we have over here? Other options. Not the biggest fan of Solis. It's just a weaker Lucian in my opinion. So yeah, this thing also not a big fan over there. Geralt can be okay-ish, but not a big fan. Salah still pretty ass. What else do we have? This thing pretty ass as well, too low base speed. If this thing got a base speed awakening, would suddenly be crazy good. Still has a hey gang issue, but then again, this thing way too hard to ruin. It's a cool thing, but yeah. This one needs higher activation rates. What else do we have? Kiki, Ongyuki, not the worst in current state. Gurkha, just give this man like a 3 or 5% healing. Like, don't make him heal crazy amounts, but 3 or 5% healing would do him good. Mugwol is very bad in current meta as well. Don't even know what the frick you want to do on that thing to make it good in the first place. Leon, absolute terrible in current meta. Mieng has seen better days, but it's not that bad. The Bay is actually not that bad as well. Banana Man still needs to kill on S3. Lydia's pretty ass. Just have more damage or passive Nem, or I don't know what the freak you want to do on that. Kraka, a lot of people do hate on this unit, but it's actually not that bad. It's still used for siege defense. I've seen people get creative with siege offenses. Fun comps in RTA is usable. This thing, however, hella ass. And this thing, kind of ass unless you paired water LDs. This one, not that bad, not that bad. Good. Yeah, nothing more to say, right? So yeah, that's pretty much all of the units out there. Then one really big question. Do they nerf Argreus? Like, that is definitely a question that is on a lot of people's minds. And that is, of course, this thing over here. And my prediction is... Nope. I do not think that they nerf this thing because it is... Yes, it is good in siege offense, but so are many things. Yes, it is very good in just your PvE shit, but that is fine. That is not that big of an issue. It is not crazy good in RTA because it's really easy to deal with if you're just fast yourself, or you just ban out their speed buff, or you just like give it a Leo. It's definitely not a Sonya kind of level of thing. Also, you can literally like 2-hit this shit. I've seen it on siege defense. I was not impressed. Like, we fought it in our round 1. We were not impressed. In our round 2 that we played, we actually used it ourselves, and it was decently good, but maybe the enemy just did not really find out the right counters. But that is because it's siege tournament right now, and people are not really sharing their counters as much, which will come later on, and then this thing will probably be felt like, okay, like if you know the right team against it, it is not that crazy good. So that is just my expectation. I don't think that this thing will get nerfed. So your teams will probably still be running, but those are my expectations. Guys, thanks a lot for watching for this one. Let me know in the comments what your hopes/expectations are. Expectations are also, of course, and predictions are disappointment. That's a thing that I forgot to do. It's like balance patch predictions, disappointment. Buff all units I have, nerf all units I don't have. Yay! Disappointed with 2 S's or 1 S. I always forget. I don't give a shit. You know what it means. Well, guys, thanks a lot for watching for this one. As see you as always in the next one. I do expect the balance patch to hit. Let's do a good rough prediction on that one. 25th or 26th of November. That is my expectation. Could be somewhere like 25th to 27th is still like the most expected range out there. So guys, thanks a lot for watching. See you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.